basics. So what is sheet metal? Well, sheet metal comes in many different forms. I mean, we have sheet metal brass, we have aluminum, we have standard sheet metal, in which we use in HVAC for a lot of our duct work. So it comes in a lot of many different types and are usually produced in a flat sheet, or in some cases, depending on the gauge of the metal, it comes in actual rolls. Sheet metal and the rolls have a lot of different advantages and disadvantages to them. It really just comes down to what type of project we are going to do and what we're going to be using the metal for. So it's really important to know what you're going to do with the metal. In HVAC, it really depends on the thickness of the metal and the construction of the metal. That is really important to make sure that when we are introducing air and velocity through the ductwork, that it is actually able to sustain the static pressure and the velocity in which the air is traveling through, so that the ductwork actually doesn't like blow apart and create massive leaks. Sheet metal thickness varies, but is generally less than a 1/4 inch thick. Metal thicker than a 1/4 inch thick is usually called a plate, and stuff that is extremely thin, we usually consider that for decoration. We usually call that a foil. Sheet metal can be ordered directly from the mill in which it's being manufactured in many sizes, dimensions, and different gauges. There is no real limit on the availability or the size of the sheet metal that in which we're trying to get. However, in HVAC, we usually have our sizes include anywhere between 96 inches to 120 inches in length. Your smaller sheet metal shops can make them smaller, like for example 30 inch by 96 inch or 36 inch by 120 inches. The answer is really unlimited. As you go out into the field and deal with sheet metal, you're going to see that they come in all different shapes, all different sizes, all specifically meant to handle your different velocities and different FPMs or feet per minute that we're trying to accomplish. The thickness of a sheet metal is what we call a gauge, and each gauge represents a specific metal thickness. So one thing we need to remember when we are dealing with gauge metal, the lower the gauge number, the thicker the metal. Don't ever get that confused. Okay, so for example, an 18 gauge piece of sheet metal is actually thicker than a 26 gauge piece of sheet metal. To measure your sheet metal gauge, we can use the tool here. Okay, that gauge is also the name for the tool that actually measures it. The American Standard Wire Gauge is the standard measurement used for non-phosphorus metals, such as metals other than iron. Okay, the recognized commercial standard in the United States for plate iron, steel, and uncoated steel is the United States Standard Gauge for sheet and plate iron and steel, better known as the U.S. Standard Gauge. Okay, this gauge is based on the weight in ounces per square foot. That's basically how we measure our metal. So basically how we use this metal or this type of gauge is very, very simple. All we have to do is insert the metal edge into one of the slots on the gauge. We're going to find the smallest slot the metal actually slides into easily, and we're just going to simply read the number, and that will give us our gauge. So you can even simply see by this picture that the higher the number, the smaller the gauge. The higher, the smaller the number, the thicker the gauge. Okay, very simple to use. There's many types of metal that we usually are going to see: steel, aluminum, brass, or copper. Obviously, for HVAC, the most common one is going to be sheet metal steel. Okay, that's usually going to be what we're finding out in the shop, what you're going to find out in the field, and what a lot of your sheet metal shops are going to be using. Okay, your sheet steel can be coated or solid, or basically uncoated. Okay, the coating, what it does, it simply reduces rust and corrosion of the steel. When you're out into the field, you may find that when you touch the sheet metal, it may have like an oily residue on it. That is the coating that we're talking about. That coating is what protects the metal from rust and deterioration. Okay, the most used coated sheet steels is the galvanized steel or your tin plate. And the most used sheet steel is your stainless steel. Okay, your stainless steel is an alloy, which is a combination of two or more metals. Okay, to tell the difference, what type of metal that you're dealing with and the applications, is your uncoated steel is going to have like a bluish black surface to it. Uncoated steel is easily corrodes easily after assembly. The product can also then be applied like with a coat. Your sheet steel applications are going to be on your stovepipes, your safety guards, and parts of some of your electrical appliances. Your galvanized steel is used a lot in your sheet metal shops and is a process of coating the sheet steel with like a coat of liquid zinc. Really, that's basically what that oily residue is that you kind of feel. Your galvanized steel has a kind of like a shaded appearance to it. Does, like I said, it does have like an oily feel to it. The zinc coating protects that metal from corrosion. The most common use for galvanized steel are in your HVAC ducts, your gutters, and your downspouts for all of your drainage. Rolled steel is not processed into its final shape and thickness until it is cooled. It has a silver gray color to it and has a smooth finish. A lot of your school lockers, cabinets are made of this type of metal. And then you got your copper sheets. These are easily recognized simply by their reddish brown color. This is an excellent conductor for electricity and contains a small quantity of alloy, commonly used in a lot of pots, pans, roofing, and printed circuit boards. That's where you'll find a lot of that. If you look at a lot of some of your older homes where have the decorative edging, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that copper sheet. In HVAC, do we really run into that? No. The only really place where you're going to run into your copper sheeting is like it says here. You're going to run into that on your circuit boards. And when it comes to circuit boards, hey, the circuit board either works or it doesn't. We're not going to sit there and we're going to try to repair it. We're just going to replace it. Your tin plate is sheet metal coated with a layer of pure tin, making it corrosion resistant. These types are food safe, meaning it can be safely come in contact with surfaces that touch food, and you're going to find those in your kitchen utensils, tin cans, and a lot of your dairy equipment. Aluminum uses an alloy with other metals such as magnesium or manganese, allowing for easy forming and bending, and you're going to find a lot of that on your automobiles, trims. You're going to find it in some ductwork and your electronical parts. Your stainless steel contains about 12 to 25% chromium. It is durable metal that resists rust and corrosion. Stainless steel is found a lot in restaurants and cafeteria equipment. Think about your refrigerators, dairy equipment, escalators, and household appliances. Brass, that's an alloy that is made out of copper and zinc, and the zinc contains not more than about 40% of the total of it. It may contain some lead, tin, and some aluminum as well, but also in very small parts. And you're really only going to find that stuff that's decorative, such as belt buckles and stuff like that.